With YouTube attacking alternative media, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon for just $1 per month. Link below. Before we jump into this one, I want to point out and say that I actually have to give Rian Johnson some credit here, right? I have to give Rian Johnson credit here because there's been one big part of Star Wars: The Last Jedi that a lot of people didn't really care for, and that would be the whole Force projection thing, right? What ultimately killed Luke Skywalker at the end of the movie was obviously I said in a rant the other day, Force exhaustion, but ultimately he trolled everyone with this, and I have to give him credit because I think that it is ultimately funny and well played. So here we got Rian Johnson on Twitter just this morning showing a picture of what looks to be his library. It comes across the Book of the Sith, the Jedi Path. Okay, so clearly some Star Wars stuff. Opens up the Book of the Jedi Path, turns over to Advanced Force Techniques. Okay. All right. What's that here? It says Doppelganger or Simulfurturus permits a Jedi to create a short-lived duplicate of himself or herself or an external object that is visually indistinguishable from the real item. To those who have perfected this ability, can create phantoms of any person of their choosing or trick an enemy into seeing objects such as droids that are actually present. And then back into the woods he goes. So this is how he's choosing to explain the Force projection or the doppelganger, the Force doppelganger. Now, it's interesting that he chose to kind of point this one out. And I find it to be funny that this is, clearly meant to kind of pull back on everyone or point at everyone that is upset about this. But at the same time, and this again is just my criticism of the overall portion of the film, this is a clear staple of Rian Johnson's ability to tell stories. It's more of a tell, don't show situation. And when it comes to this sort of thing, you don't want that. You don't want there to be a tell, not a show. You want there to be a show, not a tell. And so it's not like we all sit here and have a copy of Star Wars: The Jedi Path and then knew about the advanced Force techniques and then talked about this. There should have been a reference to this of sort that would have explained this down the road. Very similar to the end of Revenge of the Sith. When Yoda and Obi-Wan are talking and he says, Obi-Wan, I have one last mission or one last training for you, and talks about the Force Ghost. And as it was learned by someone long ago, right, or Qui-Gon was learning it a long time ago, it then opens up like, oh, will we see more Qui-Gon? And oh, that's where he learned to do that, right? Again, it took like 20 some odd years ultimately to get to that point, to telling people how it came to be, but they still told you about it. Now, if somewhere down the road, and if in episode 9, I wouldn't be surprised they actually do start talking more about the abilities of Force users and what they're able to do. Because when Luke asked Rey in the movie what it was that she, what she thinks about the Force, and she's like, oh, you can like move stuff with your mind and stuff. And he's like, oh, everything you say is wrong. But that, of course, is coming off of the Legends aspect of it, where this is the legends, the stories of Luke Skywalker and Force abilities, which is what Han Solo had explained to them on the Millennium Falcon, saying it's all real, which is what prompted Rey to try it with the Daniel Craig at part of Force Awakens. That was actually Daniel Craig that was in the Stormtrooper outfit. And everything else. So ultimately, at that point, by paying attention to the dialogue, we get to see that storyline relatively extrapolated. That didn't happen here, right? Same with Leia using Force abilities in the way that she did, right? It was, again, a situation of like, oh, we're meant to know that these things are in existence when ultimately they were never shown to us. And that is my biggest problem with this one. So while I do appreciate that Rian Johnson is trolling people very well, I also look at this and realize it's just another form of bad storytelling, because all it would have taken ultimately is 1-2 lines of dialogue in the movie, right? Something that would have said, oh, Luke trained me a bit. If someone would have asked Leia, because no one asked Leia, how did you do that? Right? No one asked Leia, how did you learn to do that? She could have just said, I've got some training from my brother, right? Or I did this thing. I took a weekend Jedi training course, on Dagobah, after we destroyed our father, that sort of thing. That would have been a plot device that would have been able to explain a lot of this away. was never there. Which, given everything else that happened in that movie, it's just, it all keeps falling into place. Bad storytelling.